Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today I'm going to do my A to Z readathon TBR. If you've never heard of the A to Z readathon, it is a month-long readathon created and hosted by Denise Harwood. I will link her channel and her announcement video for this particular round of the A to Z readathon. It takes place in April and November, usually I think, so you have 30 days to read the alphabet. And there are different difficulty levels you can do this at. I'm doing it at the most difficult setting, which is only counting the first letter of the title of books. So I need to read 26 books for the 26 letters of the alphabet in 30 days. I've never completely achieved this in the 2 other times I've done it, but I've come very close. So if that sounds interesting to you, definitely go check it out, and don't be daunted by what I'm doing because there are easier ways to do this if you want to. So I'm going to jump straight into it. I have mostly concentrated on choosing physical books from my TBR for my options. I've had to fill in with some library books for a couple of letters, but for the most part I'm going to be reading books that I own and getting them off of my TBR shelf. And I have 1 to 2 options for every letter. I usually want my first option to be something I really want to get off my TBR shelf. It's a longer book, but then I have a second option, which is my fallback if I need something shorter and faster to read for when I start running out of time. First up, for the letter A, I have Arslan by M.J. Eng. I think I've included this book on a couple of TBRs at this point, and I've never actually read it because I don't know, like, I want to read it, but also I think it's going to be really depressing. And the other option, the short one, is The Atheist in the Attic by Samuel R. Delany. You're gonna see a bunch of these outspoken author collections in this TBR because they're very short and I want to read them all. And let's be honest, I would rather read the Samuel R. Delany collection than the longer book, but also I want to get this off of my TBR shelf, finally. There are 3 letters that I hope to knock out with the other 3 books in the After Such Knowledge series by James Blish, which are conveniently all in this SF Gateway omnibus. So for the letter B, I want to read Black Easter. For the letter D, I want to read The Day After Judgment. And for the letter S, I want to read The Seedling Stars. And after B, we'll see if I need to use my alternates, but right now I only have 1 choice for B, which is Black Easter. For the letter C, my first choice is Creatures of Will and Temper by Molly Tanzer. My second choice is the probably shorter and faster to read Competence by Gail Carriger, which is the 3rd book in her Custard Protocol series. For the letter D, once again, I have The Day After Judgment by James Blish. If at that point I don't feel like reading more James Blish, then I also have Datura by Lena Kron, which is in this massive omnibus. For E, I have Engine Summer by John Crowley and Edge of Infinity, which is an anthology edited by Jonathan Strawn. This is a toss-up because I really want to read Engine Summer, but also short stories are really nice to read during a readathon. At some point, I always have to work some Ursula Le Guin in, so for the letter F, I have 4 Ways to Forgiveness, which is a collection of 4 Hainish novellas, I believe, and I don't actually know if this will be a reread for me or not. I feel like I've read it in the past, but it's been sitting on my TBR shelf for years, either because I thought I needed to reread it or I haven't actually read it. So this is pretty high priority, but once again I have a shorter one, which is Fire by Elizabeth Hand, another one of those outspoken authors collections. For G, my long pick is Gatecrashers by Patrick S. Tomlinson. I believe this is going to be a real hoot to read, so that's why it's my first pick. My second pick is Grendel by John Gardner. This is a kind of like novella-length book in the Fantasy Masterworks series that I recently got, and I think Grendel is the monster from Beowulf, but don't quote me on that because it's been a really, really long time since I read Beowulf. For the letter H, my first pick is going to be Henry V by Shakespeare because this is the next Shakespeare play I have to read. I'm trying to read the tetralogies in the correct order or whatever. However, my backup is the audiobook version of How to Be a Tutor by Ruth Goodman. I read her first book, How to Be a Victorian, earlier in 2018. My goodness, that was this year, wasn't it? I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of very interesting information about how the Victorians lived, and I thought it'd be really fascinating to read that same kind of thing but about the Tudors. So I may actually prioritize this one because it's on audiobook and I really need to work more audiobooks into my TBR. But also Shakespeare. I'm kind of on a roll with Shakespeare this year and I want to keep that up. For the letter I, my first pick is I Live With You by Carol M. Schwiller, which is a short story collection. It's also pretty short. And then my second pick is The Infinity Box by Kate Wilhelm, which is the middle book in this big SF Gateway omnibus. I gotta be honest, I probably won't get to that one because I'd rather read the short story collection. I haven't had the best track record liking or getting through Kate Wilhelm's work in the past, but I need to give her another shot. For the letter J, I just have one pick. This is The Jewels of Aptor by Samuel R. Delany. I have some other books that begin with J actually. This is just the shortest one and the one I kind of want to try right now. I don't own any books that begin with the letter K, so I'm going to get Kraken by China Mieville from the library. I can get it on audiobook, which will really help me out. Last First Snow by Max Gladstone is my first pick for the letter L. I have been thinking about starting this book for most of the year. I cannot believe it's taken me so long to get back to the craft sequence because this is an excellent series, but there you go. But I also have a very short alternate for this letter, which is The Lucky Strike by Kim Stanley Robinson. For the letter M, I have Mind Players by Pat Cadigan, which is in another one of these SF Gateway omnibuses. There are a lot of them in this TBR because they tend to have shorter novels in them. I think it would be appropriate to read Mind Players for the A to Z Readathon because I actually read Fools, which is set in the same universe for the previous one that I did. That was a year ago now, I think. So that's pretty much my only pick for M right now. I have some other books that begin with M, but you know, this is the priority. And then for the next two letters, N and O, I only have one pick each. For N, I have The Next Continent by Isui Ogawa, which is translated Japanese science fiction. And then another one for O is The Ouroboros Wave by Joji Hayashi, another translated Japanese science fiction novel. For P, I have Pavane by Keith Roberts. This one I've wanted to get to for a while since reading the description of it because it's some alternate history science fiction stuff and it sounds really interesting. Set during or after Queen Elizabeth I is assassinated early in her reign or something like that. So I'm pretty excited about this one. And then once again, I have a shorter fallback, which is Periat Mundus, I think is how you say that. Another one of Lena Krohn's novels from this omnibus. For Q, I only have one book and it's a beast. This is The Queens of Innisalir by Tessa Grattan. This is one I will start reading on pretty much the first day of the readathon because I don't have any fallbacks at all. For the letter R, I have Rim Runners by C.J. Cherryh, which I think is the next book in the Company Wars or the Alliance Union universe that I need to read. Maybe I should double check that on Goodreads actually, but I think this is the next one. And then another very short fallback is Report from Planet Midnight by Nala Hopkinson, another collection. Then for the letter S, we come back to James Blish and The Seedling Stars. But once again, if I don't feel like reading more James Blish, and that's a possibility, it could happen, I have a very short fallback, which is Saienzu Fikushon 2016. This is like a Haika Soru sampler short story collection. It just has 3 short stories in it. For the letter T, I have another Samuel R. Delany book. This is They Fly at Seron. And then my short fallback is the last of my outspoken authors' books that I have to read with Totalitopia by John Crowley. I don't think I have any physical books or ebooks that begin with the letter U, so I went to Overdrive to see what the library might have. And what I might get is Unexpected Stories by Octavia Butler, which I can get on ebook. And then another one is Unbreakable by W.C. Bowers, which is one I've been meaning to try out for a while. For the letter V, the only pick that I have from books that I own is Viper Wine by Hermione Eyre. I have never heard anybody, except maybe like one person, talk about this book, and I've been very curious about it for years, even though it has a suspiciously low rating on Goodreads. Like, I want to know if it's just a Marmite book, or if it's actually not good. So, you know, that'll be my first pick. But if that falls through for some reason, there is an Expanse novella by James S.A. Corey called The Vital Abyss, and I might see if the audiobook version of that is available on Overdrive. For the letter W, I have Rack by James Bradley. I'm very curious about this, but I also think it is kind of an experimental novel, and I'm not sure if that's the best thing to read during a readathon when I'm going really fast. We will see. My one fallback is another book by Kate Wilhelm called Welcome Chaos. Let me just repeat what I said about Wilhelm a little while ago. I don't know if I get along with her books very well, but this will be a second option for me to attempt something by her during the readathon. The rules for the letter X have changed slightly for the readathon if you're doing this on the most difficult setting like I am, because it is so difficult to find books that begin with the letter X that sound like they're actually worth reading. The letter is now a wild card. So I thought it would be appropriate to read Pilot X by Tom Merritt for this letter because X is at least a word in the title. For the letter Y, I only have one option, and that is Yakutinya, The Old World by Yasser Bajat. This is a freebie book I picked up at Worldcon back in August, and it is some Arabic SFF. I'm not actually sure what it's about or if it's fantasy or science fiction because there isn't a description on the back of it, but I am willing to give it a try. And the last letter, Z. I don't own a book that begins with Z, so my first option is getting Zeros by Chuck Wendig on audiobook from the library. And I also have a request in for one of my libraries to get Zero Sum Game by S.L. Huang, and that is being processed. So I may get the physical copy of that during November as well. So kind of a toss-up for which one I read first, basically. And that is it. That is my TBR for the A to Z readathon. I am really excited for this to start, though I'm also going into the readathon with some lowered expectations. Last time I did the A to Z readathon in November, it was a very quiet month for me. It was like perfect timing. But this year, November is kind of crazy for me. Between like work project stuff and my brain being really consumed by that, and I don't have much extra vacation time around the holidays and everything, so we will see. That's why I've made a big effort to have a lot of shorter fallbacks for my TBR, because even though I want to get a large chunk of physical space on my TBR bookshelf cleaned off, sometimes you just gotta go for number of titles rather than actual thickness, let's say. So I am excited. I hope you are too. Let me know if you are planning on doing the A to Z readathon on any of the difficulty levels, and I will be back very soon, hopefully to tell you about what I've actually been reading recently, because I have missed doing some of my weekly wrap-ups. And until then, bye.